Hello, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm bringing you guys my 2019 reading wrap up and statistics. So it's gonna be a long video, I think. So let's get started. So for the year of 2019, I read a total of 83 books according to Goodreads. I think it's more of an 82, 81 books because I do have one reread and another one isn't really I want to consider as a read. So personally, it would be a more of an 81 book read for me. But here on Goodreads, I'm just gonna be telling you guys what is on my year in books 2019. So I read a total of 31,662 pages across 82 books. The shortest book that I read is 156, and A Princess Saves Herself in This One by Amanda Lovelace. And the longest book that I read is actually the first book that I finished reading for this year, and that is Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare, which is 893 books. The most popular book that I read is Pride and Prejudice. It's read by 2,923,408 people, and my least popular book is Thomas Wilder's and the Book of Sorrows by J.M. Bergen, which has only been read by 223 books. My average rating for the year of 2019 is 4.3, which is actually pretty high. I thought it would be pretty low this year. I thought it would be more like a 4. But yeah, the highest rated book that I read on Goodreads is Consequences, Opal, and Origin by Jennifer L. Armentrout. It has an average rating of 4.64. And so yeah, those are the books that I read for the year 2019. Now, initial goal for the year was 75 books, and then I changed it to 90 books about halfway through, and then about a few weeks ago I changed it to 80 books. So if I consider myself meeting my challenge, yes, because my initial challenge was 75, and around that time I was doing really good with my reading, and I actually went into a really bad slump I want to say a few weeks after that, and it lasted for a few months. I'm only now getting out of it. So like my first 3 months I read like a majority of my books there. I feel like I read like 40-50 books the first half, and then it kind of slowed down during the second half. And so I would say, yeah, I did meet my goal of 75 books because that was my initial goal. So let's move on to more of my specific statistics. Okay, so the one book that I will not consider as a read is the webtoon by BTS. They released that earlier this year, and I finished it, and I saw it on Goodreads, and I was like, oh, okay, let's mark it. And then I saw that it showed up, and I was like, oh, all right. But I don't really count it as like an actual read. Well, I guess it is. It's like a graphic novel, ebook, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, for me, I don't really count it. And I do have one reread, so more like an 81 book read again. So looking at my data, all right, so my reading challenge goal is initially 75. My estimated total books is 80. The total books I read is 81. Now here in the data, I don't know, I feel like it's being weird. I didn't put in Save Me, so I would think it would count as 82, but maybe it didn't count one of the other books, my reread. That's why in some areas it's saying 81 and in some it's saying 82. I don't know, but you would think, because I'm looking at my books read by month, it says 81, which should be 82. I'm really confused. But yeah, the average books that I read per month is 7, which actually isn't very bad. I would say it's about the same from last year. And then looking at the books I read per month, I read 6 books in January, 11 Feb, March 10, April 6, May 8, June and July 9, and then from August, September I read 5, October I read 5, August, September I read 3, October 5, November 3, and December 8. So again, I'm only just now getting out of the slump. As you can see, I have 3, 3, 5, 3 for, the months of August to November. And then pages read. I think most number of pages that I read was in the month of Feb, which is actually also the most books that I've read. I read 7,000 pages during that month. And then the least would be August. I read 1,143 pages. And then pages per day, I want to go into that. In terms of genre, the most numbers of books that I read obviously is fantasy, and then fiction, which is, I want to say, more of a like contemporary fiction. And then I have 2 graphic novels, 2 historical fictions, 2 poetry, and 3 science fictions, and 3 thrillers, which is pretty okay. I mean, for the most part, I am a fantasy reader. I'm actually pretty surprised in terms of the fiction kind of graphic or statistics, because I don't really read a lot of contemporary fiction, I would think. Definitely I read a lot of it, but I would think it's more of a science fiction, but I guess I understand that because, again, I don't really read a lot of science fiction because I find myself, I need it to be something that I would understand and feel compelled by. And I also like thrillers, but again, it's the same thing with science fiction. So I think it's pretty good. In terms of fantasy, it's 56% of the books that I read, which is pretty okay. Because I would say in the past few years, I read like 80% fantasy, and I wanted to read more contemporary, especially since I had really good experiences in terms of contemporary fiction in 2019. And the same thing for this year. I did read quite a bit of like really good contemporary fiction. So page length, 41% of the books that I read is between 300 and 399, and 26% is between 400 and 499, which is again pretty good because that's usually the average books. For me, the average length of books is 350 to 450 pages. So that's good. I read 599 page books, and I read 4 between 800 and 899, and then 1 600 699, and 7 100 to 199 pages. Because I read quite a bit of novels and graphic novels and short stories this year as well, so that was actually pretty good. Hardback, I read 52 books, or 64%. Hardback, 30%. Paperback. Now, this hardback, in terms of the format that I read, is because that's what it came in the library. If I buy my books, I usually buy them in paperback. The only books that I have that are in hardback are from Book of the Month, but and Owl Crate. But whenever I do buy books, like say from Book Outlet or Book Depository, I choose to buy paperbacks or wait for the paperback to get released if I'm patient enough for it. And I read 1 ebook and then 5 audiobooks. Now, audiobooks is something that I am new at. I feel like I read a lot more audiobooks this year than I put down, but in any case, some of the hardbacks or paperback books I did read partially in audiobook as well. And audiobooks is like a new thing for me. I usually don't enjoy reading in audiobook format because I find myself spacing out, but because there's a lot more things that I'm doing that it's pretty mindless and I can still focus on listening to the book while I'm doing some things. I've been reading a lot more audiobooks, which is really good. It's something that I do want to continue on to the next year because I felt like reading audiobooks really helped me in terms of getting out of my slump and just having me helping me read more. Not because I want to read more, but because in terms of me going into a slump, I feel like a part of it is anxiety in terms of work, where I feel like if I read, I'm not really focused on the book because I'm thinking about something else. So having audiobooks while I'm doing something mindless for work or other stuff, I felt like really helps me kind of calm myself down in terms of I can still read while listening to while doing something else. And so for the year published, I have 1 that is not in the 20s, and that's Pride and Prejudice. And then I have 2 in between 2000 to 2005, 1 2006 2010, 12 2011 2015. Most of the books that I read were published between 2016 to 2018. I have 40 books there, and then 26 books that are released in 2019, which is pretty good for me because I do usually read more backlist books than new books, because I like to not read books as they come out because I wait for more people to review them and I hear enough about certain books that I can make my own decision in terms of if it's something I want to read or not, and usually I read it in the next year. That's why a lot of the books that I read were released in 2016-2018. I read 25 adult books and 3 YA and 4 middle grade books, which is also good. I have 2 rereads. 1 is Stargirl and 1 is Daisy Jones and the Six. Daisy Jones and the Six I read twice this year, so that I read mostly female authors. 90% of the books that I read are from female authors and 10% is from male authors. I don't really think about this in terms of it's not really something I do want to do something about. If I don't really care about who wrote what, so for me it's not a really big deal if I'm reading more female or male authors. Definitely I would love to read more from male authors, but it's not really something I feel very strongly about. Again, I don't really care if the author's male or female. I care more about the plot, if it compels me or not, or it resonates with me or not. Author continent, 88% of the people that I read are from North America, I want to say, and 7% in Asia, 4% in Europe. And then nationality, 86% are American. In terms of race, 73% 73% are white and 28%, well, 27% are people of color. Now, this one I want to read more diverse authors, like authors that are from, other parts of the world and grew up in a different culture than outside of American or European. But it's not, again, I do want to read more about it, so I will be researching more about, books or authors that are non-white. New to me authors, 57% are not new authors and 44% are new authors, which is pretty good. Again, this is I feel the same way with in terms of gender, that I don't really I don't really care if the author is new to me or not. Definitely I would research the author and look at their other work. And sometimes that helps me decide if I do want to read their book or not. But for the most part, my decision to read a book is based on the plot and if it has a pretty good average rating in Goodreads. In translation, I read 2 books that are in translation, and then the rest are not. And all of the books that I read are in English. And yeah, that's it for my statistics. Honestly, I didn't really was filling this out for the rest of the year. I feel like I only filled this out up until March, and then for the rest of the year I kind of just didn't. And then I only finished filling this out a few days ago because I know I wanted to make this video. So that's one of the things that I want to do next year, is to really use the reading statistics that I got from Portland Pages. I have downloaded it already. I have put in the first book that I'm currently reading over there. I did not keep track of all the books that I borrowed because I borrowed quite a bit. I borrowed a lot more than I read this year. So yeah, I know that I'm reading more borrowed books than I am reading bought books. And that's also something that I do want to talk about in my 2020 reading goals. And yeah, that's it for this year. I feel like I did pretty okay in terms of what I wanted to accomplish. I did want to read one more classic book, which I did not end up doing, but the one classic book that I read, which is Pride and Prejudice, I really enjoyed. I did read more poetry books and graphic novels, which I will get more into in the next year. Again, focusing more on the classics and letting myself read audiobooks. So yeah, in terms of how I did for this year, I feel pretty okay, even though I did go through months of reading slump. I still feel like I did pretty good. So yeah, I will talk more about that in my 2020 reading goals and 2019 reading goals update and stuff. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.